Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Brighter Podcast. My name is Batsheva.
And my name is Chelsea.
My life is so much brighter thanks to Chelsea.
My life is infinitely brighter thanks to Batsheva.
Chelsea and I love to share all the tools, all the techniques, all the practices, and the stories, the personal stories about what we do and use and get inspired by in order to evolve and grow, transform, heal, up-level, connect, all the good things. And we have another good episode coming for you today. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's go ahead and start by arriving in the space, this digital space together. And we do that by taking 3 calming, quieting breaths together. So if you're in a place where you can close your eyes, go ahead and close them. And otherwise, you can just breathe along with us with eyes open. Go ahead and through the nose, take in a breath, calm, quieting energy, breathing in. Letting out the breath through the mouth, imagining letting go anything that's ready to go. Again, taking a second breath in through the nose, breathing in calming, quieting energy. Breathing out through the mouth. Anything ready to go, let it go. And finally, breathing in that third calming, quieting breath through the nose. Hold for a minute at the top. And let it out through the mouth. Hello. So today, Chelsea and I decided to give our hot take on a subject that is adjacent to a subject that we tackled a couple of episodes ago, which had to do with how do you take feedback and criticism? And if you didn't hear that, it's awesome. Go back and listen when you can if you want to. But in the meantime, today, the hot take is on the inner critic. Do you have an inner critic? Are you aware of your inner critic? Is your inner critic running the show? Chelsea, do you have any insights, inspirations, or thoughts about this subject?
Do I? Boy, do I. Sometimes the inner critic for me is really helpful in ways pushing myself to the next level or kind of challenging myself in the situation. But then it's not necessarily, I don't really call it the inner critic. Then it's kind of just like the motivator. But whenever the inner critic comes out, which she's been hanging around the last few days for sure, she is kind of more like a little black cloud. And she's just, she's got something to say about everything that I am or am not doing. And sometimes if she gets a hold of the wheel for too long, it really feels like it's spiraling downward. And through the different tools that we talk about, through the breath work, through the tapping, through the movement, through the getting outside and walking, through the just witnessing the emotions, and also talking to a beloved friend, Batsheva, or therapist or counselor or any of those, coach. It's a little easier. It's a little more manageable. But kind of what we were talking about before we turned on the cameras, is it beneficial? Is it beneficial to my life, or is it the darkness right before the dawn? Is it kind of like that last push there of, all right, doesn't feel good. Are you still going to stick with it even when it doesn't feel good? Or are you going to give up and do something else? And is it giving up, or is it seeing that as a divine sign? Okay, maybe this isn't for me. And so where do you draw the line in the sand?
I really like that you initially started by saying sometimes the inner critic can help you. And then, you renamed her the inner motivator. Even an inner motivator might be a more cheerful or cheerleading or hype girl type of a voice. You can do this. But I love that we don't have to only see an inner critic as something negative itself. There could be, and there is, something worthwhile to be able to hear another side, not to be robots and not to be psycho cheerful people, because generally, if you're a grounded person and you're someone who maybe is empathetic, you feel things deeply, you feel other people, you react to situations like you said. If an endeavor or a project that you're working on seems like it's not working, it's not the worst thing in the world to also hear your voice, say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't. I mean, I think there's a healthy aspect to it, but then pretty quickly, I think it's so important for us to notice it. That's what's tricky. And versus just letting it be the voice in our head. I like to do the same thing you do, which is personify the inner critic, because there's all these different sides of me. I used to actually have fun like naming them all: the inner people pleaser and the inner teacher's pet and the inner critic and the inner judgy girl, and all the different, less than amazing, perfect parts of myself that exist alongside of all the awesomeness. But to be able to talk to them myself and talk about them like that, my inner critic, like she's just talking my ear off, because it helps to kind of reduce the noise and quiet that radio station. And then the trick becomes how to turn up the volume to the radio station that's broadcasting the true motivation, that voice of support, that voice of belief. And lately I'm working a lot with reminding myself that I'm not alone. I have a divine partner, literally God, literally the divine goddess. I'd like to have all kinds of words for her, reminding myself with different phrases and affirmations throughout the day that I can do all things through the divine and I'm not alone. And I feel like a lot of that helps to raise the volume on knowing that I'm walking the path I'm supposed to be walking and I'm doing well. And then I can start to kind of praise myself again and be my own hype girl. And the inner critic is kind of quieter, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. It kind of reminds me too of the book that I've read it 1.5 times now. And Batsheva just started reading it, The Power of Positive Thinking. And that kind of has been in my mind pretty big whenever the inner critic, whenever she's come to visit and maybe outstayed her desired time. We had a set meeting, certain time frames that she was able to really voice herself and be heard. And she just kind of lost track of time and stayed a little longer. But that book has come to my mind of, okay, what is here? How can I use these empowering, in the book, it's Bible verses or mantras or affirmations, of my own, to kind of change who's leading the show, who's running the broadcast at the moment, and kind of turn it to, the gratitude for things, or turn it to okay, what is this showing me about myself, or what is this showing me that I can grow from? Because like we said, the criticism, sometimes it's there to help us see how we can up level, or okay, yes, you did a good job, and also for next time these things would be helpful. This would improve it. And being able to hear that from yourself and know that, I think, is amazing.
And I noticed myself that I spend a lot of time on my own still. And therefore, I don't hear as much from my inner critic as I did previously, which I'm really grateful for. And I think because of that, I've been so much more creative and productive. And I've kind of only allowed myself to become close with or spend time with people who amplify the awesomeness in my life. But that said, when things begin to grow, a business venture or a creative endeavor, which sometimes is the same thing, and it reaches maybe more people, or I'm starting to put it out there for other people to witness, to experience. And at that point is when I have found, wow, if I don't get the exact response that I didn't even know I was really hoping for and looking for, I thought I was just putting it out there, but lo and behold, apparently I did want that validation and approval. Whoops. And if I don't get it, even sometimes just maybe I'll find out later, I actually did get it, but in that moment when I wanted it and I was hoping to get it, I didn't get the response that I was looking for. That's when I've found recently that, wow, that fucking shark of an inner critic just chomps down on my brain and is just you suck and you're not as good as you think you are. And remember all those times in your past that when you failed, and remember this, and building the case like a lawyer, as to why all the bad things are true. And in those moments, I'm really grateful for all those tools you kind of listed really quickly earlier when you were speaking. Because as I mentioned to you recently, tapping, like EFT tapping, if people have looked into that at all, it's a modality of therapy, but I've already adopted it, as I mentioned to Chelsea, a form of prayer. Physical prayer as I repeat affirmations and words, or also not just affirmations, but repeat what's bothering me, what's upsetting me, like a witnessing within, which I think we did a whole episode on the technique of witness within. That's another amazing one that works for me, where I go in and I welcome and thank the most devastating thoughts and feelings that are occurring to me. And by doing that in kind of that quiet setting and container, those feelings, somehow they're witnessed and then they dissolve in magical alchemy. Or like I'll take a walk and I'll do tapping while I'm walking and I'll repeat either silently or whisper the things that I'm upset about, the things I'm feeling, the things I'm thinking about myself, all the inner critic. But then I'll also, because I've done some tapping, I know enough to kind of, then you bring in, but what is good, but I accept and love myself anyway, but I know the divine has a plan, kind of bringing in the positive as well as venting and sharing the negative. So all those things and more, they're vital for each one of us to have in our toolbox, and to have ideally a friend, a partner, or a coach, or all of the above, who will help remind us to use those things, to do them, because it's like we have amnesia, I feel like, as a human race, even those of us who are committed and even teaching and coaching others, to heal. Nonetheless, I feel like, at least for myself, but I observe it for most people, we kind of need that reflection, someone supporting us and helping us be accountable to that process of healing, like the toolbox, to open it up and use those tools and make them work.
Yeah, it's easy to, I don't know, sometimes for me, I feel like it's like I know that they're there. And then for some reason, it's like, oh, maybe I'm just putting them on hold, or there's like an excuse of something else that needs to be done, or a task or something. And then it's like whenever I finally end up doing it, like I'm like, okay, now I'm going to do this. It's like, wow, if I would have just done this, a day or two ago, maybe all those other things that I did afterwards would be infused with a little bit different energy than what they were. But part of the journey, part of the learning.
Totally. And I mean, I think you speak as someone who's living in the world. I mean, people are busy, all of us. Like, I happen to have a bit more time right now because my children are out of town. But like, hello, when they're all in the house and I'm busy and I'm racing around and working and you're taking care of a home, you have a partner, you have like tons of businesses that you're involved in and growing and working with different business partners and different clients. And I mean, it is a lot, literally. It is a lot. And it's not built into our lives easily. If we don't have a therapy appointment, let's say, or, I mean, I'm wondering, did you get like that breathwork class that you sometimes take advantage of?
No.
Because you were traveling.
Sure didn't.
Because you were literally helping with friends, right? You were driving however many hours. Yeah, exactly. So that's life. Maybe this Sunday.
Yeah, actually tonight, whenever we get finished, I'm going to gift myself that. Clear the channel for tomorrow's activities.
And the truth is too, like, I don't think anyone should come down on themselves from realizing and recognizing that they have that inner critic, because I mean, I was trying to think like, well, where does it come from? Of course, from childhood, hearing like whoever, our parents' voices or our own voice within the context of our families where, the patterns begin. I mean, that said, I think it's just a part of life living in the modern world. We have a lot of noise and a lot of these negative patterns that are programmed into all of us. And it just would be amazing for us to all work together to help deprogram, the main system. She can be off to the side, Miss Critic or Mr. Critic. They can like have their back row seat in the theater and not given a front row. But we have to kind of work together maybe to agree that the critic does not deserve that front row seat in our life, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I love how you talked earlier kind of about like, tuning into the different stations. And I was thinking a lot about that this week. And, everything's like a frequency, whenever you tune into it, it's like, oh, what frequency are we tuning into? And There are the lower vibrational frequencies of criticism and anger and envy and jealousy and rage and hate. And then, it's like, how do we like shift out of, like, if we find ourselves in that spiral, and it's like, how do I pull myself out of it? I really believe that it's like through the gratitude practices and just love of ourselves, and then just thinking and thanking and writing or speaking aloud, like all the things that we are grateful for, and really just getting specific and recognizing. I know that this was one of the chapters in the book. It's like talked about a gentleman who had said that he was done for, he'd lost everything. And then the guy's like, all right, well, let's make a list of your assets. And started talking, do you have a wife, or do you have children? Do you have friends? Do you have your faith? Are you a good person? Just the other things, not things that we typically might consider assets, but it's really thinking about all the things. And as you write those or speak those or think of those and kind of get in that mode, can really shift the frequency or the station that we're tuned into. And that has been helpful for me. It has definitely been helpful. It's just like knowing that it's going to change, that being in the self-critical moment, like it doesn't have to last forever. You can choose to come at it a different way. You can choose to try something else. You can choose a change of scenery, getting outside. I've found walking outside barefoot has really helped, or pulling weeds out of the flower beds. Just like something to kind of ground me and get me out of my head and onto the earth, back in the present moment.
Love that. Or for me, it's often getting in water, if it's like a swimming pool or whatever, or taking a walk. Totally. And I think that your point is well taken as far as don't be complacent when you start to hear that critic or notice the critic, but somehow find the motivation to help yourself through it. If it's changing the environment, if it's trying a number of tools to see, maybe one or two of them together will do the trick, or 1, 2, 3, or, one day they don't work, but then the next day they do. Sometimes it has its own divine timing to cycle through us. Yeah, it can be difficult to motivate. And I do think it does come back to heading towards self-love. And I know that some of us don't feel as wildly in love with ourselves as we would like to be. And the way to get there, it's treating yourself like a precious object. It's cultivating compassion for yourself. And I liked what you said, Chelsea, about gratitude lists. Like when you first said, gratitude helps you get out of it sometimes. My first thought was like, for me, sometimes just like writing a gratitude list where my head is not in the game, I almost feel even just more detached from all those things that I should be grateful for. Because like, okay, I can breathe and I have a house and but it's not like my heart is connected to the list at that point, because the inner critic is so loud and it's just like suffocating all else. But when you mentioned that chapter from the Power of Positive Thinking book, which I'm not as far through as you are, but it's already really having an amazing impact on me. I love that story. It was right in the beginning, what you mentioned. And the way he framed that process of the man, his gratitude list or what he's grateful for, it was so simple. And it was so much, I love, like, are you a good person? Like, wow, that's not usually on a gratitude list. You know what I mean? And just realizing, like, getting so simple and so basic. And I guess from my perspective, what I see that does, it's like a little key unlocking the door to self-compassion, self-love, self-forgiveness. And those gifts, when we can cultivate those gifts and find them and treat them carefully so that they grow and grow, will give us the support we need to battle the critic. If the critic gets louder, we'll have more strength and more resilience. So I feel like that's what our podcast is all about, helping guide ourselves and others to a deeper version of self-love, which makes the world brighter, maybe.
Couldn't agree more.
So Chelsea and I always end our episodes with a little snapshot from our daily W's, which if you don't know what those are, go back and listen to episode 2. It's a tool that we use daily with each other and that has transformed our lives completely, and that we recommend and share with others. And we share here on the podcast by just giving Instead of the 3, 3, and 3, we're going to give 1 win, 1 wow, and 1 wish for the day. And I'll go ahead and give my win and wow, and then Chelsea will share her wish. So for today, let's see. Win number 1 is that I managed to do my workout. I had a small injury and couldn't work out, and also was traveling for a few weeks and was like really missing my workout. And then exactly when my workout was supposed to happen on Zoom, I was going to be in my home gym, was when the electrician was supposed to come and fix the electrical in my house, which was supposedly fixed yesterday and is not fixed. I'm literally using a generator right now to power this recording and the light in here and all the things. So he was going to come exactly at the time of my workout. In fact, that is when he came. But by some miracle, it was fine and it was no problemo that he was there. And I didn't lose electricity until 15 minutes, like on that particular outlet and the internet that allowed me to have the Zoom, till 15 minutes at the end. So in other words, I got my workout, and that was a huge win for me. Wow, number 1, I am grateful for this electrician that at least he's available. At least he came. He did not solve the problem today, but he helped rescue my external freezer with all the meat for the kids in there by putting it into like one of the few outlets that does still work. And he said, and hopefully he will come back tomorrow morning and actually solve the problem. So I am grateful to be getting the support and the help to fix this problem during Mercury in retrograde in the beginning of August, which is when we're recording. And what about you, Chelsea? What's your wish?
My wish is I'm hosting an event tomorrow. I don't know when this podcast episode will come out, but tomorrow is the peak of the Lionsgate portal, and it's also a full moon circle for myself, an event. And so I am just wishing to really be able to bring the highest frequency, the highest vibrational energy to that event, to all the people that are there. And that also, on top of that, that all the people that can benefit from it and that can benefit from the breath work and the community and gathering and it's in circle, that they all hear about it, that they're able to find the time, find the space, find the resources, and able to attend. And yeah, that it's just magical and transformational, and that the effects of it ripple out into the collective in a positive and uplifting and all-encompassing, loving way.
Love it. Amen, amen, amen. I see that for you. Totally. And if you're in the area of Missouri and the idea of a moon circle interests you, you can go to Chelsea's website and check out when the next one is scheduled for. So just letting y'all know that goodness is available.
At moonyogamo.com in Columbia, Missouri. It's where we host them. But you can find the information on the Soulscription website or on moonyogamo.com website.
All right, wonderful. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next episode. In the meantime, wishing that your days are brighter and brighter and brighter.
All our love.